It's going to take 2 years, or sorry, not 2 years, excuse me, that's actually what it did take, 2 weeks to stop the spread, and just wear a mask, this will solve it, just take your vaccine, this will solve it. And I think that the messaging for COVID in general was very authoritarian in many cases, and I think that also there...
You don't believe any of this. These are, oh my God. It's sad because Asmongold is like the perfect example of somebody who's been swept away by like these kinds of like, no one organically is thinking of these narratives. No one thinks of these narratives organically. Like these are not their actual opinion. Like these have a very specific, like it came from a very specific place. And it's so sad the way that people will talk about it as if it's like their own, like they came to this conclusion when really they were convinced by some fucking New York Post article or people repeating a New York Post article or whatever. Yeah, stochastic parroting. That's a good term. Stochastic parroting. That is fire.
Countries besides the United States that were even more authoritarian with how they handled COVID. A lot of people who were like, yeah.
I think he does, just no ability to actually comprehend. Oh, don't get me wrong. I believe that he believes what he's... I don't think he's lying. I don't think that he's lying. But what I'm saying is that like he's been offered a series of narratives for either through his audience, through his algorithm, through his Twitter or whatever. He's been offered like a series of narratives, and then he decided that it makes sense to him. And so he's going with that. Yeah. I don't mean to say that he's like grifting or anything like that. I think he actually believes these things. But that's the thing that makes it so sad, is that you can spoon feed someone a complete political narrative that is in complete lockstep with everyone else around them, and then just say, well, this is the truth. Look, everyone around you believes it. Everyone sees it. Everyone knows that it was the woke transes that won Trump the election. Everyone knows that the American people just stood up and said, we are... It's like, fuck, dude. You've been captured.
This is fucking bullshit. We don't believe this, and we want to be able to think for ourselves. And when they did that on social media, they got in trouble. Now, you can think that that's a good thing, or you can think it's a bad thing. I'm not really going to try to convince you one way or another, but I think that really the big shift for that was COVID is what really started building up.
You know what? Somebody said this the other day. I think it's when we were watching that like weird lefty channel, that leftist, fuck, how do I put it? It's like YouTube maxing, YouTube content creator maxing. Remember the guy with like all the special effects, and he's sitting in the middle of like this, of his desk or whatever. And then there's like all of these like effects and there's crazy music and like subtitles. And at some point in the video, he mentioned that like recommended reading for the leftists or whatever. One thing that he did recommend reading, and I do recommend reading it, is Propaganda by Edward Bernays. I actually do. Like that's probably a pretty, it's very, very short. It's very small. The font is large. It's like that thick. You could read it in a day. You could read it in a day. Easy. In an afternoon. I recommend reading it. I do recommend reading it. If you want to dive deeper, there's what his other books, Crystallization or something like that. Yeah. But like the thing that we're looking at here is just very intense. It's very intense, the amount and the amount of propaganda, how effective it is right now, and the way that our social media ecosystem has been basically being used as a political weapon. That's what's happening right now. Our social media ecosystem is being used as a political weapon for people that have been stripped of, for lack of a better word, their own identity. They were segmented into all of these different beliefs, social groups, etc. And then people used it like a weapon, exactly like Bannon said. exactly like Bannon said that the right should be doing, exactly like he said. And that's what happened. And it's kind of a lot. It's kind of a lot.
That resentment, and then that resentment.
Ooh, my favorite word. What happened?
I'm not really going to try to convince you one way or another.
It was the Philippines, where I believe it was the CIA, or some part of the CIA. It's so compartmentalized, but there's a specific project within the CIA. I think it was the CIA, to coordinate attacks on social media, and I think it was the Philippines. And I can give you a source for this if you want to, but basically, the United States wanted to sell their own vaccine against China's vaccine. China was giving out vaccines to poor countries for free. China was just giving vaccines out. And the United States was targeting, particularly the Philippines. Yeah, they were targeting specific countries on social media to proliferate messaging around not trusting Chinese vaccines, sometimes vaccines in general, but specifically trying to convince the populations that they should not be taking China's vaccine. And then later coming along and then selling the vaccine produced by the United States. So like that's a very small, that's a really tiny psychological campaign, psychological operation that happened. Very, very tiny, very simple, very cheap. But in the United States, I feel like a similar kind of thing happened where people could see the effects of COVID. They could see the effects on their wages. They could feel it. When you have that kind of, a pandemic, a crisis of some sort that everybody can feel, everyone's immediately mobilized, looking for answers on things that they can't comprehend. It's the perfect situation to capture people, and I think that's what happened. I think that was the plan. I think that was the project, was specifically to do that, in a lot of ways. So like a lot of the right wing, casting doubts or spreading conspiracy theories about the vaccine. The reason why he thinks that it's such a big moment to point to is how people lost trust in our institutions. The actual thing that happened is I think social media was used as a political weapon, and they are the victims of it.
Because before Elon Musk bought Twitter, there was almost no avenue on social